every other primate gives birth with the baby's face upright. And the mother is able to reach down and just tend to the baby. But we, as a result of this this evolutionary experiment on the part of the Creator, we have a bigger brain and a smaller maternal pelvis. So we walk differently because we have a smaller pelvis. We think allegedly more because we have a bigger brain. And so we've got to get a bigger thing through a smaller hole. And so if you look at the diagrams they have, you can see that it seems impossible for the human head to fit through, the human skull, to fit through the birth canal. It can only do it by a 180-degree twist, which means it comes out of the womb, out of the vagina, with the face pointing down, which means the mother can't even look after the baby. Because if she bends over to tend to its breathing canal, it cuts off the blood supply from the cord. So that's why we have to have other people to help with the birth. A monkey, there's stories, they just leave the crowd, they go off into the bush, they deliver the baby, they come back with the new baby. And so what happens is the human woman at birth time secretes a pheromone which other women, not men, pick up through the Jacobson's organ and respond and come to help. And I wish they would continue that afterwards as well, because I think it's there to be continued, and they don't do it. I think that pheromone is still out in the air afterwards. Anyhow, so this twist has to be corrected, or else we go through life with subtle twists. You know, look at the two sides of our faces, and so our dentition and so on. It's all twisted, and when and particularly the neck becomes twisted, the meninges and so on, supporting the brain become twisted, and our thoughts become twisted. So you can take somebody, and he can be in a state of great anger and this and that, but when you put his head in the position of which it is still locked from birth, because he knows his head should be up, but unconsciously he knows it should be all twisted. You put him in that position and suddenly he becomes loving. And so this twist that persists, that the cranial osteopaths try to correct, is what I call brain misprocessing. And so you can have a situation where even when the mother is completely loving to the baby can interpret it negatively, as if it was a mother to be feared. So it's not quite as simple as a mother just being 100% loving. The baby has to be 100% perceiving it that way. Now, there are natural mechanisms which we have been given to correct this. And the most important is sucking. But very, very few babies are suckled correctly. They don't, because it's a particular angle, you've got to get it just right. Because if you don't get it right, assuming that the nipple is not enlarged, very often the mother delays the feeding until it's because it doesn't work with a bottle feeding at all. But she delays the feeding until she has time. So the nipple, instead of being shaped like a cylinder, becomes like a cone. And it's too big for the baby's tongue and mouth to milk. It's the baby milking the nipple, which then expands the cranium and puts the bones back in place, and therefore relaxes the meninges and the coverings, and then allows the misprocessing to evaporate. You see? But it's so rarely done. And I worked with babies and mothers and helped them with this, and the babies change. And then the way they crawl, the creeping and the crawling, All these are mechanisms, if used correctly, give inbuilt mechanisms, if we use them correctly, which will overcome this extra twist. We have been given the answer, but with the state of mothering and obstetrics and so forth, and pediatrics, we don't employ it. You see? So even the tragedy is, even if the mother herself was completely loving, the baby would not see it that way. And very often, you find people who are so misprocessing, they just get it back the front. You can say, I love you, and they hit you. They think you're saying, they interpret this as you are saying, I hate you. What I like to say, and sometimes I don't, but I like to say, you're not mad, you're not bad, it's your neurology. If we had, forgetting trauma, if we had perfect births, without all this, what I call this birthing trauma, all this distortion, our neurology would be a lot easier, our thinking would be a lot clearer. And if you look at, as I've done, look at prisoners. I've seen them in prisons, I've seen them in psychiatric prisons and so forth. And so many of them have very distorted faces, particularly. Very twisted, dentition. I want high. They've had terrible, those have had terrible births, never mind the traumas they've had afterwards. So to me, it's not, you're not mad, you're not bad, it's neurology.